Welcome to Cesar Chavez Community Garden. I'm Bridget O'Brien from the Garden Juju Collective, and we're gonna give you guys some gardening tips and tricks today. We've got a few volunteers here to also help me out and help beautify the garden. Today we're gonna work on bed prep, so getting the beds ready for planting. We've got a few different beds here that we're gonna be working with. These are both raised gardens. This one has some plantings in it, and the rest of it needs to get finished. This bed needs a whole overhaul. And then down here, we have some grass that we want to dig out of this ornamental bed, perennial bed, and we have some plants in our other raised beds that we're going to move over here today. So to get started, we want to identify the plants that we want to keep. So in this bed, it's pretty obvious. There's some new plantings that have been put in. We've got some cilantro and some sweet peas. We also have a weed over here. I can't remember the botanical name of it at this time, but it's often called Creeping Charlie. And we want to get that out of there. We want to get the roots out of it. Over here, we do have some kale. It's gone to seed, and it's spring, it's time to plant fresh kale. So we can pull this out and compost it. I think it'll probably be a good thing for our worm bins in the back, right? And then there's some chicory in here, which is edible, but we want to make room for peppers and tomatoes and things. We also have, this is called lamb's quarters, which is also edible, but we want to make room for more kale and peppers and things. So, and this also grows all over the place, and so we can find it in some of the in-ground beds, and we could eat that if we wanted to. We also have garlic mustard here, which is delicious, again, but considered a weed. These are some volunteer brassicas of some kind, maybe mustard greens, and those can all go. And then the most of this is just the kale and chicory, or chickweed. So the first thing, now that we've identified what we want to keep, we're going to figure out what the best tool is for the job. We've got a couple tools today. We've got this Japanese gardening knife called a hori hori, and this is one of my favorite tools. It allows us to dig down deep and get to the base of the roots so that we can pull them all out. It can also help scratch the surface if you have little tiny sprouts, or if you're planting a bed of seeds, you can kind of scrape it back, put your seeds in, and then pull it back over. We also have a gardening fork, or this guy, yeah. This little hand rake, super useful for breaking up the soil and getting around some of the little ones. Sometimes it helps you get under the mulch to get to where the roots are. So we'll be using these two different tools to dig the roots out and clear these beds. We want to make sure that we get the whole root structure out. So sometimes that's easier said than done, and sometimes we will weed something and get most of the root but can't reach it all. So we will have to come back and do it again, like with thistles or dandelions or something. So when you're doing that, these tools that go real deep are really helpful because you can dig down in and loosen up the soil. And as I'm loosening up the soil, I'll start shaking, and depending on the plant, sometimes twisting a little bit, and that helps get the roots out. So then I'll go to the next clump, loosen up the soil around it, shake it, and then we want to shake the soil off of it as well too, so we can keep it in our gardens. Oh, that's always rewarding when you get a nice deep root. And we'll just keep going like that. Okay. Then, when you feel like you've got most of the weeds out, it's good to put this in the compost. It's good to use that hand rake or your hands, because they can be a rake, and just kind of move the soil around, try to find any little root bits. Here's one I missed. I'll go back into that one, like that. Trying to find any root clumps, because those could be something that might not be aggressive, or it might be something we really don't want in there. So we'll just get them out of there. If we leave the roots in there, they could regrow. So even if they're sitting on top, some things are real aggressive, and it could, you know, with just a little bit of coverage, it could regrow from that. So the more of those little root babies we get out, the more likely we are to not have to weed again anytime soon. Yeah, eventually something will come in, and whatever soil you have uncovered is an opportunity for an unwanted plant to come in. And weeds are just misplaced plants. So one person's weed is another person's medicine. Like I said, a lot of those plants we already pulled out today are something that we could eat. So then smooth it all over, try to make it nice and even so that you have a nice even surface to then plant into. So now that we've got the beds weeded and we've kind of raked them out, got all those roots out and any little things we don't want in here anymore, to get this ready for planting, we can go ahead and add a layer of compost to it. And it doesn't have to be a very thick layer. We'll pick the bits out, and then we'll just do a nice layer of compost on here. We'll give it a drink and we'll be ready to plant right into it.